Hello and welcome back to my allotment garden on what is quite a breezy afternoon. Didn't quite realise it was going to be this breezy today, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear me okay because I've got a lot to show you. April on the whole has been a very dry, warm and sunny month. We haven't had much in the way of rain for the last 3 or 4 weeks. We did have a shower last night, but it wasn't enough to really soak the ground. And I was meaning to sow some of my carrot seeds direct, but the ground's still too dry, so I'm going to have to hold off on that for a little while. But the allotment is looking at its peak for spring. The tulips are in bloom, all of the spring bulbs are now in bloom. My apple tree, the blossoms out on that, as well as the cherry blossom as well, so it's looking at its peak. I can't wait to show you the wildlife corner because that's looking particularly pretty this month. And also the lower end of the allotment garden where I've been making a lot of changes. That's had some good progress this month. I don't have any shopping to show you this month because, well, the shops are still closed because of the coronavirus, and so we're just going to jump straight into it this month, and I'll show you around the plot at the end of April if I don't blow away. As you may have noticed, it's quite breezy this afternoon, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear me okay. Here we are, here's the plot. Lots to see today. Let's have a look at the rose that's behind me. All the erigeron that I've underplanted it with is coming out in bloom again. And this is my climbing rose, the generous gardener. It's already putting on so much growth. I didn't prune it over the winter because I think it still needs to concentrate on climbing because I've only just planted it last year. I'll save the pruning for a little while. As we go down the main path, I've got this beautiful shrub that's in bloom. Can't remember the name of this one off the top of my head right now, but it's looking lovely in this golden light. Should we have a look at the pond? Right at the end here, my hosta is making an appearance, shooting up from the ground. Hopefully the slugs don't get to it. Although it's next to the pond, it does quite well here because the frogs eat all the slugs. There's a pansy and some primroses. And moving up, I've got this daffodil that is called sundisk, I believe, and also some nice sunny yellow cowslips. I planted this one not that long ago, before all the garden centres closed. And I've even got a little bluebell. And the water's looking a little bit murky in the pond, but I've still got a pair of newts in there that I think are breeding. I've got a few frog visitors, but no frog spawn this year, which I'm not surprised at because I don't always get frog spawn in my pond. It is quite small. And these daffodils, the cheerfulness scented ones, are just going over now on their last few days. Under the old plum tree, my now bird feeding station, I've got my blueberry bushes. And look, I've got flower buds, which means I'm going to get blueberries. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, all the main beds are looking quite bare at the moment because they still need planting up. But my strawberry beds looking pretty happy. No flowers yet. Dandelion, good for the bees. And my rhubarb, well, that's just another level this month. It's like a jungle. In fact, I'm going to pick a few stems this afternoon once I'm done today because there's so much there. I've made an effort to continue to water it because I've pulled off a few flower spikes, and it's something you got to look out for when the weather's really warm. Let's check if we've got any more. And if you find a flower spike, you want to take it off. So yeah, make sure you take off any flower spikes that you see coming up because you don't want to waste the energy. You want lots more stems and not flowers. Look at all the new growth on my autumn fruiting raspberries. They're like 8 or 9 inches tall now. And can we just take a moment to appreciate my apple tree? that's now in full bloom, and it's just absolutely smothered in blossom. And each little blossom is going to be an apple. Just look, there's so much of it. And beneath the apple tree is my wildlife corner, and it's looking, well, very blue at the moment. All the forget-me-not is in bloom. Lots of things coming. Let's have a closer look. Now this grass here I think is the quaking grass, or I think it's pronounced quaking, and it's like a fishtail shaped seed head. It's really pretty in the wind, and it looks beautiful with the lupins, so I think that's what's coming up here. I've actually been around and cut back some of the perennial flowers, cut back some of the old wood. Oh, there's a little dunnock. I think he wants to use the bird bath. It's okay. Here are the lupins this month, getting taller. Can't see any flower spikes yet, they're right down there, but they should be in bloom next month and around the beginning of June. And the foxgloves put on a lot of growth. And over here, this is my little insect feeder, or drinking station should I call it. It's just a shallow dish with some glass pebbles in it, filled with water, where the bees can come and have a drink quite safely. This here is a delphinium, and so many forget-me-nots. I love it. You know, some people would think of it as a weed. It does self-seed everywhere, but I mean, it's so pretty. Just look at all that blossom. I'm gonna have so many apples this year. Oh, it's nice and warm in the sunlight. Well, before I show you the progress that's been going on over there, I need to show you some of the blooms that are happening down here. Take a look at those tulips. So I planted this bed up around November time with all those bulbs, protected the bed with mesh against the rats and the squirrels, and look at the results. I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that. I'm going to be picking some of these later, share them with some of my neighbours. Oh yeah, and down here, look, these are the parrot tulips, not quite in bloom. Really unusual, can't wait to see them come out. Which brings me on to the lower end of the garden that's had some big changes this month. I've actually swapped these beds over. This is one that I picked up for free off somebody before the lockdown, and I still need to fill it with compost, but I'm holding off for a while because of the lockdown. It's quite tricky to get hold of compost at the moment, and obviously my seedlings and plants need it most at the moment, and they'll feel this as and when I can. But I've got this one here, the other one behind me, which you saw last month. I've moved the compost bin, which was behind me. That's now right in the corner. And you might see that big piece of rather ugly fencing. Now that is where I'm going to grow some climbing plants, and the plan is to cover the framework a little bit to try and make it a little bit more pretty, try and disguise it that it's not a piece of mesh fencing. A plot neighbour actually helped me get hold of that, and it's going to be ideal for my climbing clematis that's already there. I've also got a honeysuckle that's there, and any of the climbers that I want to put in, but it is part shade, so it's not going to be for the sun-loving climbers. So yeah, the area is coming on really well. I'm very pleased with the results so far, and that I've got some extra growing space for this year. As you can see, so far I've filled it with some leaf mould, some spent compost, and some compost from my compost bin. So I don't plan on just filling it with compost, because there are lots of other things you can put in a raised bed to bulk it out. So this fence panelling is just propped up for now. I still need to get it in the ground, but for that I'm going to need some fence posts, the spikes, which I can't get hold of at the minute, so that's going to have to wait a little while. Bit of a messy area, but this is the plan for this corner, and it's all going to be disguised by the climbing plants. So that's the plan. So the compost bin's now over there, and behind that pallets I've got some black bags filled with leaf mould, some wood there for making some raised beds if I want to, and just all my odd bits and bobs. So here's the plot from the lower end of the garden. If you watched my video last month, you'll know that I bought a standard fig tree. Well, it arrived and the leaves are just coming out now, and it's already got some little, I think they're called embryonic figs on, little baby figs. Whether they'll grow enough to be good enough to pick this year, we'll have to see. But yes, this one is called Brown Turkey, and it's quite hardy. It goes down to I think about -8, -5, -8. I need to check on that. But yeah, it's going to be really pretty when all the leaves come out. And look at all those tulips. This bed here is where my garlic is. It's going to be my allium bed. I've recently planted out some shallots there, just to the left of them. And in those tubs there behind are my potatoes. Growing potatoes in pots last year really worked for me, so I'm doing it again. I've actually mulched the top of mine with some leaf mould and a little bit of vermiculite just to try and hold in the moisture. But I've got a few different varieties in here, mostly second earlies and main crops, varieties such as Charlotte, Cara, Sampo, Una and Red Duke as well. I like to bury the pots very slightly into the ground so that if the plants end up wanting more moisture, the roots can grow out of the holes in the pots and grow down and into the soil. One of the main things is keeping these well watered because they do dry out very quickly, and potatoes need a lot of water to grow, particularly between now and early June. Here's my shallots that I've planted out, looking nice and healthy. I've made sure that I've watered these in quite a lot because it's been so dry. And the garlic seems pretty happy. A couple of yellowing tips, but that's okay. I forgot to show you this. I sowed it by seed. Was it last autumn or last summer? It's more known for its seed heads. It's called Honesty. It has very coin-shaped, papery seed heads, but the flowers are just so pretty as well. I did actually pick a couple of stems for a vase, but I will leave the rest to go to seed so that I can enjoy the lovely seed heads in the autumn time. Oh yeah, I harvested the last of the celeriac. I kind of left it in the beds without realising. But yeah, they're not bad for a first attempt. I mean, they're not very big, but I will still cook them all the same. Let's escape the wind and go into the polytunnel. Down here we've got all of my dahlias, some of which are new ones that I bought, such as this one, which is called Totally Tangerine. That's the one for the wildlife area. Another Totally Tangerine, and Skipper's Bronze. I know I've also got Waltzing Matilda in there, but I've planted up the ones that I overwintered in my basement. These are the ones that sit in my raised dry stone wall raised bed. Cafe au lait, Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz I actually divided. It's my favourite dahlia, and I now have 3 of it rather than just 1, so I'm pretty pleased with that result. Over on my potting table I've been taking some catmint cuttings, and I've also got another dahlia there to sort out. This one hasn't fared very well because it spent all winter in a pot outside, and although a lot of it's rotten, some of the tubers are still okay, and I did see a growth point at one point, so I'm going to pot that up and just see how it fares. But down here I've got lots of seedlings, some of which are still submerged under the compost. Some of them are poking through just. So what have we got here? Lots of flowers. Frosted Explosion, that's a type of grass. Wrinkled Cress, that's for cutting for my flowers, but it's a nice bit of green foliage. And lots of amaranth and some linearia. I've also potted up the canna that I bought, and look, it's got a green shoot. But I've also got here some coriander. Nothing to look at yet, it's all bare soil. I've been a little bit behind on my seed sowing because of all that work down in the bottom area, but they'll soon catch up, so I'm not too worried. And on this side we've got lots of squash. That one's buttercup, sweet pie, Sibley squash, some more sweet peas that are in but not germinated, some straw flowers, a vanilla grass, and here are some of my soil blocks with some lettuce, that's the flashy butter oak, some spring onions, and also some chives. And I've got more squash. Sorry, it's all bare soil. It will look better next month, I promise. But look at my sweet peas, the ones that I re-sowed. Some of them are doing quite well, and I've also got some cosmos that have just germinated. And I've got some broad beans again. They've not been eaten this time, or yet anyway. The variety called Robin Hood seems to be doing well, so we're planting those out within the next few weeks. And I've got some more sweet peas, so it's not all doom and gloom for the sweet peas. I will have some this year, just not as many as I originally planned. Now this is my Erigeron Caravanskianus. It's a very it's a daisy flower. It's the one that I've underplanted under my rose. It self-seeds everywhere, so I've taken some of the seedlings, planted them up, and I'm going to put this down in my wildlife corner in between the stepping stones. I've got some French parsley and lots of courgettes. I'm actually sowing for not just myself, but for my neighbour, my plot neighbour as well, and for the the area at home that I'm trying to work on with some of my flat neighbours. So there's lots of seedlings here for everybody. What we've got here, some perpetual spinach. Those are my catmint cuttings, which I'm trying in both water and compost propagating. Yeah, and I've got some beetroot here. This variety is called Bull's Blood in my soil blocks. Seem to be doing quite well in those. I was a little bit rushed for time when I realised that I hadn't sown much, which is why there aren't too many soil blocks at the moment, because they can take a little while to make. But I just need to make some more for my peas, I think. And what are in these? More Cosmos, Purity and Rosetta. And I've also got more lettuce down here. Lettuce for everybody. Ruffled Sole and Red Solix. I know I don't have too many seedlings sprouting just yet, but I'm not worried, they're all going to catch up, and before you know it, in a couple of weeks time, I'm going to be potting them all up, looking for more room and shuffling everything around in here before the tomatoes and the chilies arrive. They're still at home because the temperatures at night time at the moment are still quite cold. It's dropping to about 5 or 3 degrees some nights, and if I was to bring the plants here, even though there's no frost to kill them, they'd still be quite unhappy. They'd slow down their growth and they'd be quite stressed, and that kind of temperature can also stress them out to the point where they get pests. And I'm just keeping them at home for the time being, where they're quite warm and happy until the temperatures at night time increase, and they'll be here by the end of April, the first week of May. I have 2 cherry trees right at the top of my plot on the mound, and they're just going over with their blooms. Got 1 white one and 1 pink one. So on this rather windy afternoon, this is how the plot is looking at the end of April in 2020. Oh, it's actually getting quite chilly now that the sun's going down, and that wind is really quite cold. It's definitely going to be a cold night tonight, so I'm going to head home shortly, but I'll be picking some of these tulips and also picking some rhubarb as well. Next month is going to be another busy one. There's going to be lots of plants to plant out, lots of more seedlings to sow, and I've got some structures to make as well, because I'll need to support my peas and my beans with lots of TP frames. I've got those beds to fill. I've got so much to do. I can't wait, because May is such a beautiful month. I hope you'll join me. I'm sure I'll see you before then, but in the meantime, take care and I'll see you soon.